My name is Ben Bellarado. I'm giving the next talk, obviously. My name is Ben Bellarado. I'm a PhD student at the University of Arizona, where I'm working with the School of Anthropology and the Tree-Ring Lab. And I'm the principal investigator on a project called the Cedar Mesa Building Mural Project, where I'm looking at building murals in some of these sites, that, especially that Bill was just talking about. Now, I literally just emerged from the canyons. Just finished about a week of pretty intensive work, which is actually about the 5th week I've put in all summer. And don't worry, I took a shower this morning. I think. Anyway, so this project was originally funded last year by the Southwest Land Culture Society program at the University of Arizona. Got a nice scholarship to come up and start to try to revisit sites that had already been documented, at least to some extent, although some have been rather meagerly documented, maybe there's like a page form or so. So I've been revisiting some of these sites, especially when there's indications that there's intact plaster inside of structures, intact structural wood, mainly in cliff dwellings. And looking for different types of building decorations or murals. And then this year, I've been funded by the Canyonlands Natural History Association, great grant to work in, come back to the area. And then, so basically the main focus of my project though is working with the BLM to create an inventory of all the intact building murals around the greater Cedar Mesa area, basically from about Butler Wash on the east over to the edge of Grand Gulch and a little beyond on the west, and that entire landscape. And so we're trying to make an inventory of these intact, really rare and unique features at some of these sites, so that the BLM can start to maybe manage some of these really important sites a little more and just at least be aware of where they are. So beyond just trying to make an inventory for the BLM and help them with management plans to protect some of these sites that have been really not over-visited, but visitation is definitely increasing in the last couple decades. And also we still have looting problems out there. So beyond that though, my research goal, I'm really interested in understanding the distribution and role of social and religious networks across the ancestral Puebloan landscape. And really, like I said, what I'm focusing on is building murals. Building murals I kind of think of as the clothing that you put on buildings. And basically it's like the social skin that you could constantly replaster, resurface the interior or exterior of your homes. And the imagery and the different types of ways you put that imagery on these buildings really reflects how people are looking at the world, especially in those really intimate places like their houses. And that over time, just like clothing fashions change, fashions and styles of building murals change. And so one of the things I've been looking at is basically taking methods that Tom Wines and other folks at the Tree-Ring Lab have put together for tree-ring sampling of intact structures, and take that as the next step further. So what I'm doing is I'm targeting intact structures, like I said, looking for the best examples of different styles of building murals, especially when they have intact wood, like the roofs or the tall walls, for example, and then try and take samples of those specific structures to really narrow down the dates of these different styles of building murals. And I've actually had really good luck so far. So like I said, I've been working a lot with Tom Wines and the Wood Rats. Kind of sounds like a band name, right? Alvin and the Chipmunks. Tom Wines and the Wood Rats. I'm going to hear about that later. So and like Tom, Tom's looking at all the wood at these sites, and that's really great. What I'm trying to do is really target specific structures that, like I said, have these really incredible examples of different styles of murals. And then the best examples are the ones who are actually tree-ring dating. Let's see here. So just to give you an idea of what I've been doing, so last year I came out here and got to sample 4 different sites, several kivas, and got about 54 samples. And then over this last year at the U of A, I've been actually analyzing my samples and trying to kind of put this picture together of the different seriation, the changing in building styles, but then also compiling it database of good different building murals that maybe I can't date, but just that we know where they are. So far I've put together a database for just the greater Cedar Mesa area of over 80 different instances of building murals. And then this year I've gone back and worked at 4 sites with a whole slew of volunteers, including Tom and some other folks in the audience here, and collected 94 samples so far, although I still have another week of work, from 7 structures at 4 sites, some of which have the pulp construction, several of which are intact kivas, and they all have different building decorations. Now, what this is shown, some of my analysis has shown, is that after maybe some of this hiatus in the late 1100s, up on Cedar Mesa, buildings were predominantly decorated with incised designs on the interior of structures, especially kivas, and the main subject matter of these designs were textiles, especially twine sandals. Now, the actual twine sandals are made out of yucca. They have like 25 different kinds of knots in them, and they have these raised treads. And I think that the raised treads, these really complex geometric designs in them, are really important indicators of social identity, especially kin and lineage groups. And these types of designs in structures and then also in rock art around habitation sites are really important for signaling this kind of close-knit social identities. Now, about 1240 or so, things changed really dramatically. For one, in the perishable record, twine sandals actually drop out. We don't think they're actually made after that. They also disappear from building designs, building decorations. But what they're replaced by are these monochrome or bichrome, usually red and white painted designs that occur not just on the inside of structures, but also on the exterior of buildings. We also see kind of idealized landscape themes show up in those murals, and also a lot of shield depictions. And so and these are big and bold, kind of more simplistic, if you will, than the earlier really complex designs. And so what that suggests is that maybe people are signaling kind of different messages to a larger audience. You can see these shields and these big murals from much further away. And so maybe their focus is shifting more from a lineage base to maybe some larger community base. All right. So basically, my methods give us really 5 things that we can really look at. First, of course, is just the dendro sampling of sites and establishing regional chronologies, adding to the database that Bill and Tom are putting together, and look at occupational histories in the area, especially at sites that are in danger from looting and over-visitation. And then also, what we can do is identify the different styles of building murals and how they're distributed over the landscape and how things change over time. We can start to get community boundaries by the ways that people express themselves with their very personal building designs. What the distribution of that is over space and then time. And then also third, like I said, there's a lot of rock art that has really nearly identical imageries that we see in building murals. So one thing we can do, of course, rock art is really hard to date, but if we look at, say, a twine sandal with a toe jog and a really complex, intricate geometric design, so that's probably a twine sandal. Well, in the building murals, they have a distribution about 1190 to 1240, where those are really the most common thing. So we can say, okay, maybe that's probably what this rock art dates to as well. And so we can start to look at rock art sites and potentially certain examples date those to a really small 50-year period, which is pretty cool. Also, it helps us to establish what the perishable record, that of course is perishable. People wear clothes, and especially sandals, and then when they move, they literally walk away with those things. And also, those are kind of target of looters and vandals, these really fancy perishables. So basically, the perishable record is really intermittent and sparse. But people drew their clothes, at least in certain time periods, on their buildings. So we can actually start to reconstruct what people are wearing and also what this different, maybe social messages they were trying to express with their clothing was at different points in time. And then finally, what this allows us to do is, or at least I'm hoping this allows me to do, is look at the different social and religious networks that are in place over time and across space in the Cedar Mesa area. How am I doing for time? 30 seconds. All right. Well, all right. Well, I'm glad lot to tell you about what the role of these things are in the kind of dissolution of the Chaco system. Seems like clothing was really important for teasing apart social identities across the landscape as Chaco kind of fell apart. It seemed like it was really important, almost like a police state, in terms of identifying who was walking across the landscape and where. Also has a lot to do with roads. Let's see here. And then what we can also do finally is look at some of the depopulation of the area. And as Bill said, Moon House is one of the last sites out here. It has this really nice painted mural. That's really the last dates we have from this area. But one thing we can do is look at similar building murals at other sites and say, okay, you know, if we have a day range of about 1250 to 1270 on these certain kinds of murals, and we see these other places, even if there aren't dates, we can start to identify other places where there might be these kind of hanger-ons in the Cedar Mesa community before people leave. But if you have any other questions, I'd love to talk to you more later.